In this predictive scenario, by mid-2025, the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, faces unprecedented internal dissent. Frontline units are reporting refusal to participate in any new large-scale operation. Years of continuous low-intensity conflict, compounded by political upheaval in Jerusalem, have eroded soldier morale. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, already juggling a fragile coalition and mounting corruption investigations, now confronts the possibility that his own army may no longer carry out his directives. This article examines the roots of the crisis, its political fallout, regional ripples, and potential paths forward for both government and armed forces. Historical context: war fatigue in the IDF. Since the 2006 Lebanon War, Israel has conducted multiple campaigns: Operation Protective Edge, 2014, incursions into southern Lebanon, 2021, and the Gaza flare-ups of 2023 to 24. Each left soldiers more wary of repeating the same cycle of limited gains, high costs, and global condemnation. By 2025, many conscripts and career officers alike argue that the Fourth Lebanon War would simply be more of the same, a brutal stalemate that fractures units without securing lasting security. The cumulative toll of repeated deployments has fostered a deep sense of exhaustion across combat brigades. The psychological toll from Gaza to Hezbollah. Recent Weinstein Center surveys reveal that nearly 40% of returning Gaza veterans meet criteria for clinical burnout, while 28% exhibit symptoms of combat fatigue that impair decision-making. Similarly, reserves called up for skirmishes along the northern border report chronic stress and sleep disorders. Psychologists within the IDF warn of a compassion fatigue, whereby soldiers feel morally conflicted about operations that disproportionately affect civilians. As mental health services struggle to keep pace, commanders fear that operational readiness is compromised more by psychological wounds than by ammunition shortages. Emerging dissent, soldiers, voice concerns. Small but growing pockets of dissent have formed within infantry and armor units. Anonymous WhatsApp groups circulate messages urging peers to petition the High Court of Justice if a new Lebanon conflict is ordered. In late June, reservists in the 7th Armored Brigade reportedly drafted a collective letter to Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, stating refusal to be cannon fodder for another political stalemate. While disciplinary measures remain rare, the very act of organized objection signals a rupture in the traditional chain of command. Case studies: units refusing duty. 7th Armored Brigade, Golan Heights. Over 120 reservists submitted formal warning letters in June 2025, stating they would not deploy unless there was clear legislative authorization. Golani Reconnaissance Company. A dozen soldiers publicly resigned their positions, citing unjustified risk, without a clear strategic objective. Naval Commandos, Shayatet 13, whisper campaigns describe operators threatening to leak internal readiness reports if called to launch anti-ship raids against Hezbollah targets. Though small in number relative to the IDF's total strength, these acts have a disproportionately large symbolic impact, emboldening others to voice private doubts. Root causes: politics, leadership, and morale. Three intertwined factors fuel the refusal movement. 1. Political paralysis in Jerusalem. Netanyahu's inability to form a stable government until early 2025, amid corruption trials and coalition defections, has sown distrust in civilian oversight. 2. Strategic ambiguity. Soldiers report feeling that political leaders lack a credible endgame. Without clear objectives beyond deterring Hezbollah, combat orders feel aimless. 3. Social fractures. Draft exemptions for the ultra-Orthodox and certain minorities stoke resentment among secular and minority soldiers who feel they bear unequal burdens. Netanyahu's political gamble. Faced with this military malaise, Netanyahu risks either appearing weak by backing down or overreaching by attempting to discipline dissenters en masse. Within his Likud party, hardliners argue for a show-of-force operation to reassert authority, while moderates warn that further bloodshed without public support could topple the government. With approval ratings dipping below 30% in recent polls, the Prime Minister's calculus becomes existential. Can he launch a credible deterrent without fragmenting his coalition? Coalition pressure and backbench revolts. Junior coalition partners, particularly from right-wing and religious blocs, demand a robust response to any Hezbollah provocation. Yet centrist allies, such as Yair Lapid's faction, fear electoral backlash if soldiers are seen as unwilling to fight. Internal polling leaked to Haaretz shows 55% of Jewish Israelis sympathize with soldier burnout, while 60% oppose sending troops into Lebanon absent an immediate threat. This divide threatens to collapse the government if Netanyahu cannot reconcile competing demands. Public opinion, sympathy or outrage. Mass demonstrations outside the Knesset reflect public ambivalence. One side carries signs reading, "Our heroes deserve better," urging greater mental health support. Another chants, "No retreat, no surrender," condemning the refusals as unpatriotic. Arab citizens, meanwhile, watch the turmoil with cautious relief, while diaspora communities voice deep concern. American Jewish organizations lobby the U.S. administration to press Israel for a peaceful resolution, underscoring the international dimensions of domestic morale. International implications. Allies and adversaries alike monitor Israel's internal crisis. Washington, wary of entanglement in another Lebanon war, privately urges restraint. Moscow and Tehran see opportunity. Russia offers advanced P-800 Onyx missiles to Hezbollah, while Iran supplies mine-laying drones via clandestine arms channels. Even moderate Arab states, Egypt, Jordan, express worry that renewed hostilities could destabilize energy markets and refugee flows. A fracturing IDF, therefore, has consequences well beyond Tel Aviv. Potential scenarios. From concessions to crackdown, Israeli leadership faces three broad paths. 1. Strategic concession. Engage in mediated talks with Hezbollah via third parties, e.g. Qatar, to diffuse tensions before mobilization orders. 2. Selective retaliation. Approve pinpoint airstrikes against high-value Hezbollah targets, frames as defensive, to preserve credibility without full mobilization. Third, disciplinary crackdown. Invoke emergency powers to punish refusal with unit discharges and court-martials, risking mutiny if scaled. Each carries risks. Concessions may be read as weakness, limited strikes could trigger wider escalation, and crackdowns could irreparably damage military cohesion. Alternative strategies for Israel. To reconcile the army's needs with political imperatives, Israel might pursue enhanced soldier support, dramatically expand mental health teams embedded in frontline units, and introduce mandatory rest rotations. Transparent mission goals. Publish clear, achievable objectives for any northern campaign, reducing soldier frustration over open-ended mandates. Universal national service reform. Broaden drafting pools to include currently exempt populations, spreading burdens more evenly and boosting public solidarity. Such reforms, however, would take months to implement, a luxury Netanyahu may not have if tensions escalate rapidly. Hezbollah's calculations. Lebanese Hezbollah, emboldened by Iran's naval success in our prior scenario, now tests Israeli resolve with sporadic rocket volleys along the blue line. Their leadership gauges Israeli responses. Any hesitation or refusal to retaliate only increases domestic support in Lebanon. A fragmented IDF presents Hezbollah with a strategic window. They may escalate to salvo barrages aimed at Israeli border towns, compelling a reaction that further stresses soldier morale. U.S.-Israel relations strained Washington, while publicly affirming Israel's right to defense, privately warns Netanyahu against a large-scale ground incursion into Lebanon. President Ellis's national security advisor, during a June 2025 visit to Jerusalem, conveyed that American logistical support, overflight rights, intelligence sharing, could be curtailed if the IDF operation lacks public backing. The prospect of reduced U.S. aid complicates Israel's strategic calculus and deepens domestic controversy over soldier refusals. Media narratives and political fallout. Israeli media outlets diverge sharply. Haaretz portrays soldier dissent as a healthy check on hawkish politics. Yedioth Ahronoth frames it as betrayal at a time of existential threat. The Jerusalem Post highlights polls showing a yawning generational gap. Under 30 Israelis more likely to support dissent. Over 60s more hawkish. Opposition leader Yair Golan seizes on the crisis, calling for a vote of no confidence unless the government presents a coherent security plan that addresses both soldier welfare and national deterrence. Conclusion. A nation at a crossroads. As Israel stands on the precipice of another potential war, the refusal of some IDF soldiers to fight underscores a deeper crisis of purpose and political legitimacy. For Netanyahu, the stakes are nothing less than his government's survival and Israel's strategic standing. The path chosen, whether dialogue, limited action, or forceful discipline, will reshape the relationship between citizens, soldiers, and the state. The ultimate test: can a democracy reconcile the imperative of security with the human costs borne by those who carry its rifles? Or will this moment of dissent herald a new era in Israeli civil-military relations with long-term repercussions for the region's fragile balance?